Action and adventure TV shows channel from Comedy MX spotlights Tarzan, Rin Tin Tin, Zorro, complete Saturday matinee serials Captain Zero, Annie Oakley, The Big Picture, Korea and Vietnam Wars, and more. The thrills and chills never stop at Comedy MX. So return with us now to those golden days of yesteryear.
Congress declare that since the unprovoked and dastardly attack by Japan on Sunday, December 7th, 1941, a state of war has existed.
President Roosevelt speaks and the Armed Forces Act. Naval Secretaries Knox and Forrestal put into effect war plans previously prepared in the event of national disaster. One of the Navy's primary duties is the enormously complex task of funneling the means of survival to our forces and allies overseas. Shipping must be found and assembled, convoys organized, and cargoes assigned. But first, orders, directives, requisitions, and more orders. Orders to shipyards, orders to bases, orders to railroads, and orders to America that her factories and workers might begin producing in quantities the boldest economists never dreamed of, that the Axis leaders never dreamed of either. Fulfilling the orders is only the beginning. The products must be sent soonest, where they will count most. Of the machine age is democracy's greatest material asset. Without it, she is defenseless. Without it, defeat is certain. From a port in the Gulf of Mexico, a tanker sets out on her long voyage to England. But first she heads for New York, traveling along well-defined coastal convoy routes made necessary by daring German submarines now operating off the very shores of the United States. From time to time, more ships are fed into the convoys that passes key ports. Life on the tanker has none of the glamour of the grander ships. But unless the merchant sailors get their cargo across the ocean, the battleships will be useless. The carrier might as well be scuttled. She's a dowdy old girl, the tanker, but she's the queen of the convoys. Coastal convoys are organized into an interlocking system that operates like a railroad network. Ships are shuttled back and forth under maximum protection of local escort vessels and air cover from strategically located land bases. Navy PBYs roam the air in predetermined patterns in the convoy areas, ready to warn the ships or attack the U-boats. But the wary subs are seldom sighted. Far more often, what the PBYs spot is the work of the unseen enemy. Sometimes the enemy leaves a trace, or what looks like a trace, an oil slick. The warning goes out at once, and a smoke bomb marks the spot. escort picks up the PBY's alert. General quarters sound. Search for the enemy is on. The sonar man seeks the underwater echo that will betray the sub's position. No response. False alarm. All along the coast, cities keep their peacetime lights glowing until they learn how this benefits the enemy. The lights are beacons for the lurking U-boats. Offshore, enemy eyes are patiently peeled, waiting for a silhouette, a target. Deck guns are in order. So bold have the Germans become, they dare to fight openly on the surface, a few miles off Main Street, USA. The survivors have gone. The killers have fled. A few random traces in the indifferent sea show a convoy has passed. A submarine has struck. The first leg of the voyage is almost over. New York, into whose harbor pours the wealth of North and South America, offers a temporary haven. Here the Gulf port tankers rest, waiting to be reassembled with other ships into a transatlantic convoy designated HX-0. Ships fill their empty holds with waiting cargo, stuffing them to the bursting point. Getting these supplies to their destination safely will be a dominating factor throughout the war. This is what the Battle of the Atlantic is all about. The operation of a convoy requires organization, seamanship, and a knowledge of the enemy. Merchant captains and escort commanders get last-minute instructions from the convoy commodore and intelligence officers. Some of these men will not live through the ordeal ahead. For all of them, it's only a step or two from the conference table into battle. A battle that will begin as soon as their ships put to sea. beyond tried to give the convoys protection. From their Lakehurst, New Jersey base, the Navy's lighter-than-air ships cover the convoys it puts to sea. The stately blimps lolling overhead are a comfort and a reassurance to the sailors below as they head into the unknown. Convoys, 50 or 60 ships, scattered across 30 miles of ocean, must be kept under constant, coordinated control. The course zigzags to baffle submarines, and precise navigation keeps all ships moving in unison, according to a prearranged timetable and pattern. Meanwhile, the escorts act as watchdogs, with the aid of all the intricate new devices that science has added to war at sea. But there are not yet enough of them, leaving dangerous holes in the ring of protection around the convoy. Each captain is responsible for maintaining his ship's proper speed and position. The strain of maintaining station never ceases. The ship that straggles behind is doomed. But for the sailors off duty, shipboard life takes a deceptively normal course until it is their turn to go on watch again. Convoy HX-0 is still a long way from England. As it heads into the perilous open spaces of the North Atlantic, the Royal Canadian Air Force furnishes coverage from bases in Newfoundland. Submarines can neither surface nor attack as long as aircraft are overhead. But there are still vast stretches of the ocean over which no air umbrella can be spread. In this fatal gap, the convoys are almost helpless. The U-boat, almost invincible. Fog, the ancient curse of mariners, intensifies all hazards of a hostile sea. The convoy must slow down. A dangerous, desperate measure. Reduced speed favors the enemy, but collision would be disastrous. men in the convoy, nerves raw and weary to the point of exhaustion, strain their eyes, their brains, their faith, but to no avail. Ship signals the convoy to proceed while she tries to locate the enemy and counterattack. But the battle-wise German seamen know what to do. Submerge. Head for the bottom. Cut the engines. Sweat out the depth charges. Tactics work. The escort loses contact and gives up. The German is safe. Safe to kill again. The submarine's eyes and ears have no difficulty in locating a hapless straggler that lost its convoy station in the fog. Surface. Why waste the torpedo? The ship's armed guard has pathetically little with which to resist. But they fight back with all they have, ship to sub, gun to gun. Ahead. The hunt is still on. The wounded convoy shuffles along its agonizing course. Tired lookouts and signalmen help pull the convoy together. And as the ships head into more northerly latitudes, the weather will become worse, rendering detection gear less effective as the sea takes over. Seas are welcomed by all hands. Seasick sailors can hold up their heads. Those sore from the buffeting can relax. Everyone can dry out. All hands eat hot food again. Clear skies bring relief, and the men tend to forget the enemy. But their captains know this is folly. There is no safety in these waters. True, the convoy is closer to England, but it's also closer to German air bases. Now the enemy is over the ocean as well as under it. Scouting planes are constantly searching for Allied convoys, eager to spot one and radio its position, course, and speed back to base. Instantaneously, efficiently, the message is decoded at U-boat headquarters on the French coast, where the convoy's position is plotted. Admiral Dönitz, master of the Nazi submarines, devises plans for a major attack by U-boats in the area. He reckons their positions in relation to the convoy and organizes them into a wolf pack. In a matter of minutes, the submarines have top-secret orders to rendezvous and proceed to a designated spot in the path of the convoy. The battle is over. The ships are sunk. The men are dead. Surviving ships have not much further to go. The long voyage is almost over. England, grim England, to these sailors means victory. Victory in the Battle of the Atlantic. The men, some of them. The ships, some of them. The supplies, some of them get through. Get through to bring final victory a little nearer. But who can measure the cost? Is east. Yesterday it was Pearl Harbor. Today it is the whole Southeast Pacific. Hardened by the campaigns in China, fired by the sacred mission of extending Hirohito's dominion over 12 million square miles of the Pacific, the hordes of Imperial Japan surge south and east in a deluge of destruction. Glory is their goal. Glory and oil, and rubber and rice. Mysterious, haunting names of the Far East are the notes of an allied dirge. Manila, Mindoro, Mindanao, Hong Kong, Hainan, Hanoi, Makassar, Mandalay, Malaya, Bataan, Bangkok, Borneo, Cambodia, Cavite, Corregidor, Batavia, Bandung, Bali, Singapore, Shanghai, Sumatra, Panay, Palembang, Pescadores, Surabaya, Sumbawa, Sumba, Banzai. century, Hong Kong has stood as a symbol of British prestige in the Orient. The Japanese strike and Hong Kong falls on Christmas Day, 1941. Hong Kong was British. Manila is American. But the Japanese are impartial. It is Manila's turn. The mightiest fortress in all the East, Singapore, key to Malaya, key to Java, key to the wealth of the Indies, looks seaward for trouble. But behind the unsuspecting back of the British, the Japanese begin their creeping assault. Deep in the jungle that is thought to be impenetrable, the enemy comes crawling down on Singapore. The jungle does not stop them. The scattered defenders do not stop them. Nothing stops them. The Tiger of Malaya, General Yamashita, forces a conqueror's demands on the helpless English. With hope gone, with defenses crumbled, with no aid in sight, General Percival signs away the greatest outpost in the British Empire. 2 months later, 36,000 Americans in the same plight begin their march of death. Bataan and Singapore. Defeat, catastrophe, humiliation for Great Britain and the United States. Far away in Washington, President Roosevelt strikes the only note of relief in the unending Allied dirge. But there is no real relief. Corregidor, America's last stand in the Philippines. In common suffering, a new bond of brotherhood is forged between Americans and Filipinos. II. General Wainwright surrenders all armed forces to the enemy. The Philippines have fallen. In 5 horrible months, the enemy, like an octopus, has stretched his tentacles across vast spaces of the Pacific, devouring prize after prize to satiate his appetite for conquest. But the day after Corregidor's fall comes the Battle of the Coral Sea. American carrier planes pounce on a Japanese invasion force out to engulf Port Moresby and cut off Australia. For the first time in history, men of war fight it out without once sighting each other. When the battle is over, the Japanese retreat. One of their carriers has been sunk. 2 others are badly damaged. The United States loses the carrier Lexington. Few know it, but the tide is turning. Out from America, across the enormous ocean waste, transports stream toward Australia with supplies and men. The buildup begins. Personalities who will dominate the coming struggle emerge. General MacArthur in Australia, and in Pearl Harbor, Admiral Nimitz. As the Japanese prepare to strike again, Nimitz makes a fateful decision. He gathers available ships together in the Central Pacific, deducing that Midway is the enemy's objective. Nimitz appoints Admiral Spruance to command a carrier task force in the defense of Midway Island, 1,000 miles west of Pearl Harbor, 3,500 miles east of Tokyo. Midway itself sends incessant patrols in search of the elusive Japanese. Massive forces are converging on this pinpoint in the ocean, which the enemy wants as his eastern outpost. For America, it is the last century between Japan and Hawaii. The Pacific War is focused on a coral atoll, 6 miles in diameter. Day after day, hour after hour, planes search and search and search. And then, through a gap in the clouds, Japanese troop transports. But what the spotting plane does not see is the Japanese striking force, which outnumbers the Americans in every class. Battleships, cruisers, carriers, destroyers, planes. The same carriers that raped Pearl Harbor are headed for Midway. Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, Hiryu. Aboard the flagship Akagi, Admiral Nagumo, who directed the attack on Pearl Harbor, plots his new mission. Execute an aerial attack on Midway, destroying all enemy forces in preparation for landing. The pilots assigned to the task are also veterans of December 7th. The elite of Fleet Air Arm, the pride of the Imperial Navy. Confident, fanatical, they prepare to slaughter the Marines defending Midway and add the island to their unbroken string of conquests. Midway blazes, but Midway stands. Far at sea, Admiral Spruance increases speed to 25 knots and prepares to close the Japanese. Admiral Fletcher, officer in tactical command, orders: proceed southwesterly and attack enemy carriers when definitely located. The tireless search planes hit the jackpot. The enemy carriers are finally located. Midway has been badly hit, but Midway comes back fighting. So loaded with fighting equipment as this stationary aircraft carrier, little room is left for its natives, the Goonie birds. Midway hits the Japanese with all it has. Every available land-based plane is sent against the enemy fleet. Bomb after bomb, miss after miss. Not one hit. The Japanese come through the attack unchecked. The invasion of Midway is still on. 5,000 troops stand by for landing orders. Spruance's task force is closing in. The Admiral now knows the approximate location of the enemy carriers. It is June the 4th, 1942. A moment for command decision. Pilots are summoned to the ready room and briefed. Crewmen are called to station. Spruance has cast the die. The task force will risk an all-out attack against superior odds, hoping to surprise the enemy. Hoping to annihilate the enemy.
Pilots, man your planes.
In all three American carriers, in Hornet, in Enterprise, in Yorktown, the young and the brave prepare for battle. Some will fall in flames from the sky they seek to dominate. Some will perish in the ocean, whose mastery they seek to win. But the ritual of launching takes its disciplined course, as precise and ordered as a ballet. The enemy, still unaware of the approaching American fleet, prepares for another strike on Midway Island. Below decks, the pilots are at ease, while their planes, which are armed with torpedoes, in case the United States Navy is sighted, are rearmed for another bombing mission. Poor intelligence is an enemy blunder, a godsend to Spruance. But all-out attack begins with all-out disaster. Hornets Torpedo Squadron 8 runs into murderous enemy flak and swarming Zero fighters. Of Torpedo 8's 15 planes, all are destroyed. And not one hit is scored. Out of a total of 41 torpedo planes from 3 carriers, only 6 survive. The news is grim. But the attack continues. The dive bombers go in. Enemy defenses, off balance from the earlier assault, are unequal to the new attack. The carriers are hit. In 2 amazing minutes, the course of battle is reversed. It is the Americans who inflict the slaughter. The Japanese crumble. Akagi, smashed and sinking. Kaga, smashed and sinking. The American submarine Nautilus jumps into the fight and sights the smoking carrier Soryu. Torpedoes from below are added to bombs from above. Soryu, smashed and sinking. One Japanese carrier, off to the north, remains untouched. The Hiryu. A scouting plane finally spots the Americans. The Japanese lash back. Yorktown is the target, and Yorktown knows it. Detection gear picks up the avenging enemy. 30 to 40 planes approaching from west-southwest, 40 miles out. Hell is on the wing. Fighters take off to meet the attack. From ship and sky, the Japanese encounter fierce defense, but they press their assault to the limit. She is dying. But retaliation is on the way. Planes from the Enterprise ring down the curtain on the Battle of Midway. Hiryu, smashed and sinking. 4 Japanese carriers, gone. And with them, their irreplaceable pilots. Yorktown is dead. But so are Japanese plans to dominate the Eastern Pacific. Admiral Spruance, his ships, and his men have won the Battle of Midway, one of the most decisive victories in naval history. The Imperial Japanese Navy